So, have a great day, everyone. Today, I will be having my input of discussion about globalization of pop culture. So, this globalization have different definition. Um, it has various definition with the different authors, different expert when it comes to the discussion of globalization because there are different factors that could give us the idea of globalization. Now, we are talking about globalization of pop culture. So allow me to share my screen on how globalization affects our culture in the recent time, especially in our country, Philippines. So this time I will be elaborating the discussion on the globalization of pop culture. So I will be using also a presentation used by grade 10 presentation of the junior high school because they also have topics when it comes to globalization for us to have a great idea on the specific topic globalization. And then we will proceed to the slides being presented using the reference that we have. For the meantime, we will have first globalization. So allow me to use Filipino language, wikang Filipino, when we discuss globalization or globalization, because it will really help us understand what is globalization all about. So this day we are going to talk about globalization of pop culture, how this globalization affects our recent culture, or as well as the culture affects the globalization, vice versa. So there is a question here, what is globalization? There are various definitions on this book, Contemporary Issues. No? Kung titingnan natin ng mabuti, napakahirap bigyan ng kahulugan ang salitang globalisasyon. No? It has a broader definition. It has different concept. No? But if you try to look at the word itself, globalization or globalization, the word refers to globe. It affects the entire countries, the entire world, the entire earth where we are living. Okay, so it will involve all the countries in the world. How are we interconnected, interrelated to each other? We all know that our world or the earth is huge, no? Napakalaking espasyo. Ngunit dahil sa globalisasyon ay pinaglapit, no? We are being connected, we are being interrelated, no? Ang globalisasyon ay napakalawak, no? Napakalawak ang konsepto na ito dahil ang mundo natin ay napakalawak. So dahil sa globalisasyon ay lumawak at lumalim at pinabilis ang pakikipag-ugnayan ng mga tao sa mundo. Ibig sabihin, the spread of information, the spread of technology, the spread of culture, no? Uh, it has a widespread. Everybody or everyone has its own effect, no? From the human being to culture to politics to geopolitics and so on and so forth. So, ayon sa pangangahulugan ng Falcon Bridge at Stock noong 2001 sa salitang Pilipino, ito ay ang paglawak, paglalim at pagbilis ng pakikipag-ugnayan ng mundo. So we have a huge space here in the world, but we are being connected as one. According to Marshall McLuhan, he is a social scientist, a Canadian social scientist, Marshall McLuhan. We are living in a village, a global village. No, we are living in a global village. So, what is this global village? If you try to look at this one, the picture, no, it symbolizes different technology, media, information, digitalization of the world. No, so it really involves the culture of a certain country and on a certain region. So dito makikita natin kung paano naapektuhan ang bawat isa, ang bawat bansa dito sa mundo. So as the statement goes a while ago, statement of Marshall McLuhan that we are living in a global village. No, these are two opposing terms. Global, meaning when pag sinabi natin global, ito ay napakalawak ng espasyo. When it's a village, napakaliit. No, barangay, meaning to say we are putting into one space or one place all the things that we can see around the world. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng mga bagay-bagay sa mundo, kahit na napakalayo natin sa bawat isa, ay parang naninirahan lang tayo sa isang komunidad na kung saan lahat ng mga ito ay readily available. Pwede nating maranasan, pwede nating magamit, pwede nating gawin ang lahat ng mga bagay dito sa mundo. Dahil yan sa interconnectedness, interrelatedness ng bawat isa, bawat bansa sa buong mundo dahil sa kultura, dahil sa culture. So, let's have this one. This is a Filipino term. Napakabilis ng pagbabago ng mundo sa loob lamang ng ilang dekada. Meaning to say, from previous decades, there are different changes that happen to our world. Maraming tao ang nagsasabi na parang lumiit bigla ang mundo. We are what we are trying to say here is hindi naman literally na lumiit ang mundo. The world is not getting smaller. But on this matter, the statement wants us to understand that the world becomes smaller because of our interconnectedness, our relationship with each other in other countries. For example, let's have this one. Pinagpapalapit ang mga malalayo. We are, for example, if you have relatives from abroad, from a foreign country, we could communicate to them easily because of technology, because of the advent and the development of technology, communication. Meaning, pinapaliit nito ang mundo. Kung anong meron sa ibang bansa, ay meron din tayo. Dati-dati, kung itong produktong ito, if this product is only for this country, available only for this country, we could not enjoy what they could have. But for this time, because of globalization, their products are being exported to our to our country. Therefore, we can also experience what they have experienced in their country. So it only means that the world is getting smaller because of that, because of those situations. No? Biglang lumiit ang mundo at naging mabilis at komplikado, no? We can observe in our daily lives that this activity of our daily life activities, we can observe that it seems that it is so fast, napakabilis, complicated ang ating buhay. May ibang tao naman na nakaramdam na mas matibay na ugnayan sa kanilang kapwa. Okay? But before we proceed to the detailed discussion on that, there will be 3 questions to be asked for you to answer in your exit card. So the first question is, for this time, you need to answer this one in our exit card. You need just to comment in the comment section the first question. The first question will be like this. So what is globalization for you? What is globalization for you? After we have some discussion on that. What is globalization for you? So that's the first question. In the latter part, we will have our second question. So here is the statement earlier I've been mentioning that according to Marshall McLuhan in 1960, it seems that we are living in a global village. These are two opposing terms. Global, it's a wider scope. When I say village, a smaller community. We are in a smaller community. We can experience what they can experience in other country. Pinapalapit ang mga nasa malayo. Kung titingnan mabuti, mahirap bigyang kahulugan ng globalisasyon. This is what my introductory statement earlier, that the word globalization has a difficult term. It is a difficult term to define. Para sa iba, ito ay paglawak, paglalim, pagbilis ng pakikipag-ugnayan ng tao sa mundo. So ang globalization ay maaaring tingnan bilang isang proseso. It's a process, a historical process. For example, when we go back to the time that we are being colonized by the Spaniards, their culture that being introduced to us was being adopted by Filipinos. So that is one of the symbolism. That is one of the reason why we can imitate the culture of the Spanish, because we are being exposed to 300 more than 300 years because we were colonized by the Spaniards. No, it could also be a karanasang panlipunan, a social experiences at historical processes. May iba namang nagsasabi na maaring tingnan ang globalisasyon sa political concept. No? Ang ugnayan ito ay unti-unting naugnay sa kanilang sarili sa pamamagitan ng pandaigdigang samahan. Like, we have the United Nations, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, meaning to say, we are being united as one, no, because of the different international organization. That is a political in nature. We need to be associated. We need to be connected with other countries to survive. No, there is a statement or saying that no man is an island. If we as a Filipino will not involve ourselves to other country, we cannot survive. We need other countries. We need them for us to survive. Here in our generation today, in the concept of globalization, we need to connect to other countries for us also to develop. Although we are part of the third world countries, we need also to talk, we need also to communicate, we need also to tap to other first world countries. No? That is a reason, that is one of the reasons why globalization is still existing until such time. No? Going back to our history, no, the history of our country, there were already globalization, interconnectedness. No, for example, the trade, the ancient tradings, no, we traded already prior to the coming of the Spaniards to our country. Like the Arabs, we have our tradings, no? Like the Chinese, we also have our trade to them. We exchange our cultures with them. So that's an evidence that there was already globalization during that time. Until such today, the globalization is really part of our daily system in our life. So maaari din tingnan ang globalization bilang kultural. So this is what I'm saying. It is cultural in aspect, in nature, because because culture can be transferred. Culture could be adapted. For example, their traditions, their beliefs are being transferred, to by the Spaniards to the Filipinos, like the beliefs, like the Catholic belief, As of today, we are considered as a predominant Catholic country, Christian country in Southeast Asia, and even in Asia. That is because of the influence of the Spaniards to our country. That is because the Spaniards exposed their culture, their own culture to us, and it became part. Their culture was already adopted by the Filipinos. The ideas, their gawi or asal behavior, we act like the Spaniards before. And then when the Americans, we are also exposed to their old culture. So that is why we can say that we are a mix of a culture. Filipino is a mix of culture, from the pre-colonial era to the colonial era and the post-colonial era. So we are being exposed to different type of cultures because of the colonization and the influences of these colonizers to our country. So it could also be an economic aspect. No? So ang sentro ng isyong globalisasyon ay ang ekonomiya. So in this discussion, the economics or economy is the center of the discussion, the center of the topic of globalization. No? From trading before, like the Manila Acapulco trade, or what we call the galleon trade in the history of our country, in the history of the Philippines and Mexico, no? Mabilis na nagbago ang paraan ng palitan ng produkto from the barter to trading industry, Kinakita nito ng pag-usbong ng malaking korporasyon. We have the different corporation. Why we can still experience, why we can still eat, why we can still drink the drinks that the Americans, the Western people are also drinking. That is because of trading. That is because of investment. So, another thing, ngunit sa kabuuan, nagkakasundo ang lahat, ang mga eksperto, sa pagsasabi ang teknolohiya ang pangunahing mekanismo sa proseso ng globalisasyon. So in other words, technology has a great impact to the globalization. the mechanism of globalization, why there is a globalization, why there is an interconnectedness of other countries to another country, that is because of technology. The advent of technology really has something to say, has an effect to the globalization that we experience today. Sinasabi ang globalisasyon ay hindi mangyayari kung hindi sa tulong ng innovation and technology. That is because, example, we are now in the social media. No, we are using different technology to communicate, and for additional information, no, in the whole wide world, we are number one when it comes to exposure to social media. We are number one when it comes to the utility of social media and exposure to internet. Although our internet is not that of good condition, but Filipinos are very fond of using technology, internet, and social media. And that is a fact that we cannot deny that most of us Filipinos are exposed to social media, to technology, to internet. And that is one of the reasons why we are doing that. That is because of globalization. So prior to that, before we continue, let's have another slides on the concept of globalization. This one. Okay, so globalization in pop culture. If you try to look at, we are now in the second question, no? Our second exit card. You try to analyze the picture or the animation. There is an animation. Can you give me your idea of what the picture or the animation would like to tell us? A story or something. So you give me your idea or your concept of the animation that being presented this time. So any idea lang na siya, it's an open idea about globalization of pop culture. So you only focus on globalization of pop culture. Your interpretation of the animation must only rely on the globalization of pop culture. So another definition of globalization, a recent definition by Code 2020. It is an ongoing process. Why it is called ongoing process? Because until today, the globalization are still going on. No, it will not stop. As I discussed earlier, that globalization started in the ancient time. There were already globalization that happened in our community, in the world, in our global scenario that was historical in nature. But as of today, it is an ongoing process that involves interconnected changes. So I've mentioned this already, the interconnectedness of individuals, of countries to countries, individual to individual. But there are changes, no, interconnected changes in economic. So as mentioned earlier, that most likely globalization really affects the economic activity of a certain country. So interconnected changes in our economic activity, cultural, social, and political spheres of society. Meaning to say, globalization affects our life in all aspects. May it be in economic activity, cultural activity, social and political spheres of society. So if you try to look at the pictures here on the right side, it really tells us the story that we are connected to each other. Although we are coming from different countries, we have different cultures, we have different races, we have different genes, but we are interconnected as human beings. We can connect to each other and we are interrelated. Although we have different forms of government, different cultures, and whatsoever the differences that we have, that is because of our different races. But globalization will always take place because it is an ongoing process. Let's continue. Before we proceed to the detailed discussion of globalization, let's have the scapes of globalization. So, what is this? So Arjun Apadwari, an anthropologist, emphasizes on the different scapes where various kinds of globalization occur, meaning to say, these are the different aspects of globalization, how globalization happens, and what are the examples of globalization in a certain community. And that is, these are all the different type of globalization that will occur in a certain community. And these are called scapes. Scapes are multiple and intersecting dimensions of integration. How these different aspects of our life being integrated to another aspect of our life. So the term here is interconnectedness. The first one is ethnoscape, the global movement of people. The second one is mediascape, flow of culture. Third one is technoscape, circular of mechanical goods and software. The fourth one is financescape, or the circulation of money in the world. And the last one is ideoscape, a domain where political ideas is move around. So this time we will be um, discussing each of those scape. Huh? So what are those? Let's start with the first scape. Now there are five scape that being mentioned. The first one is um, the ethnoscape. If you try to observe the word ethno, it refers to the ethnicity. It's it is all about culture. The people, no, refers to the flow of people across boundaries. No? We can observe as of today, although there is a pandemic, we still go to beyond borders. We go to other places. No, we visit other places from one country to another country. Prior to the pandemic, that was one of the best industry, the travel industry, the tourism industry. No, and if there are some negative things that happen to your country, you may transfer to another country, but you could not be easily become a resident or a national on that. There are some processes, but you can go to other countries. No, if you follow their policies, if you follow their migrant policies. So it's the flow of the people, no, transferring from one place to another place. In the history, no, that was also an activity of a human being. No, without if you don't have a permanent resident residency, you are keep on transferring to another place to another from one place to another place because of the resources. Yeah? It might be naubos ng resources sa lugar na ito. Lilipat ka na naman sa bagong lugar. And that is what we call the nomadic, no? Nomadic people. So now the ethnoscape, when you transfer to another country to another one, you can what? You can also enjoy, you can also learn their culture. Now, while people such as labor migrants, these are example of the labor migrants are the OFW. No? You are considered as a labor migrants. You are working to other country. Therefore, you will cross the border of your country to another country. Travel out of necessity. Okay, for example, for tourism. No? When you go to other country, you can learn from their culture, the tradition. We can also have the refugees. Now, we all know what is a refugee, no? And if there is some crisis in your certain country, you will be you are going to escape from your own country to look for the one who will receive you, who will cater and accommodate you, and you will become a refugee. Excuse me. So for travel out necessity, these are what we call the leisure travelers, no, who become a tourist, no. Tourism industry is one of the biggest industry when it comes to income. No? So that is ethnoscape, the flow of people across boundaries. Example, in the Philippines, there are different races, there are different people are coming to our country. The second scape is technoscape. It refers to the flows of technology. In today's generation, in the 21st century, that we are now in the digital world, technology is the mainstream. If you are not, if you don't know how to use the technology as of this time, no, you cannot go with the flow. No, technology from a country which is the one who produce different technology, no, they can export their product, and we can also enjoy the product that they have. No, refers to the flows of technology, like an Apple's iPhone. No, it is just one of the example how the movement technologies across boundaries can radically affect the day-to-day life. The technology, the cell phone, the mobile phones, the internet, the laptop. No, everybody is using it. No, and that way we can also connect to other people. The sales records are surpassed with each release of the new iPhone. No? We have now the new iPhone, the iPhone 13 Pro. No? The trend are still there. No? We need to say, nagbabago talaga ang trend. when it comes to technology, and the value of the technology will easily depreciated. No? Okay, so that is techno space. The third one is induscape, refers to the flow of ideas. This can be small scale, such an individual posting in our or personal views on Facebook, a public consumption, or it can be larger and more systematic. No? We are sharing our ideas on Facebook. No? So that is on the recent type. But in the older, on the oldest type of escape are, for example, our beliefs, no, the Christianity. It was being spread, propagated because of the missionary priests. No, the missionaries provide a key example. The Christian missionaries to different places in Africa. No, that continent before there were no Christians, but because of the Christian missionaries, they already propagate Christianity on that place, and that is it just came the ideology being spread. The next one is finance scape. What is this? Refers to the flow of money across political borders. Now we have different currency, but that foreign currency could be uh, exchanged to the currency that we are where you are on that such moment. No, the currency of the Philippines could be used in other country, but it will be exchanged to their own currency. Now, like other flows discussed, this phenomenon has been occurring for centuries. For example, other countries are bringing dollars, or our OFW is working abroad. Of course, they're sending money in a dollar. No, that's an example of finance scape. The last one is the media scape. The media scape refers to the flow of media across borders. In earlier historic periods, it could take weeks or even months for entertainment and education content to travel from one place to another. For example, before we have the telegramma. If you are sending an information to your relative, now it may talk. It will take time for you to receive that information. No, but for this time, no, in just a second, you can receive an information. You can receive a content of educational content, like the different platforms on social media, the YouTube, the Facebook, and whatsoever. It could really give us information. That's what we call the mediascape. That is because of the internet and the technology. So that is mediascape. So while the five scapes are being defined earlier, no, uh, this really affects the globalization of a certain country. So let's go back on the slides for a moment to continue. Let me share my screen. So we are not talking about the ages of globalization, how globalization started in the ancient to the present time. So there are different versions of globalization. So the first one is the globalization 1.0 or 1.0. Okay, the globalization 1.0 version started when the Europeans started to explore the unknown world from 1492 to 1800s. This is the time of the age of exploration, the age of discovery, and the age of colonization, where the Europeans, the Spaniards, and the Portuguese, to mention, Portuguese were the first to explore. No, when they are looking for the East Indies, the Spice Island, and they're also bringing their own culture using the different ships, no, with the different navigator, no. In Spain, we have one of the most famous. We have, um, yeah, of course, Ferdinand Magellan, no, was also been written in the history books, and the country, the Philippines, was also involved in that process. And of course, we also have Christopher Columbus, no, one of the most famous navigators during the age of exploration. So that is the first part of globalization when The Europeans tried to explore, tried to spread, and tried to look for another territory eastward. That is going to Asia. That is the globalization 1.0. And the globalization 2.0 is all about economics. The multinational corporation on the MTC, no, the the big corporation, the huge corporation, when they try to have their own branches, they have their own corporation, transnational corporation. No, that had happened. For example, the food chain, McDonald's. We also have a convenience store like the 7-Eleven. No, you could not see 7-Eleven before here in the localities. You can only see 7-Eleven in the cities, in the prominent cities, the highly urbanized cities. But as of now, it is like a mushroom occurring. Na? Even in a simple barangay, municipality, you can really have the 7-Eleven. That is because of the multinational corporation being emerged. The means of transportation, the communication, because of the improvement of technology, the transportation like the aerospace or the airplane, the land transportation, the sea transportation, the trading become more global. And science had changed the lives of the people. That is the 2.0 globalization when the multinational corporations started. And that is because of the, the Industrial Revolution. So if you try to remember, recall, the Industrial Revolution happened in Great Britain. Now, when they started from the manual operation of all the products to a mechanical or to using the machines, and that will really also improve the production. And because of that, because there is an improvement of production, they are looking into more of the raw materials. And it also pushes other countries, especially the European, to look for the raw materials in order for them to produce product. And they're also looking for a place where they can sell their products. Now, that is what we call the surplus products. Those who are being consumed by their nationals, their people, are being consumed. But those who have the surplus product, they need to have a place to serve as a market of their surplus product, or the product being exists product for them to sell to other countries. So that's the time of industrial revolution where mechanical exploration, the machines are being improved, and therefore there is a need of a lot of raw materials and a place where they can sell their product. The globalization 3.0 started in the year 2000. This is the new millennium, the second millennium, no? When people discovered the fiber optic network. So it involves on the discussion of higher technology, no? Fiber optic signals, internet connection, where we can see that the computer before, no, it's not the computer that we had. No, there was no laptop during that time. Siguro in the year 2000, if there was, siguro dili pa nga naka-develop. It made the global collaboration and competition easy, and it characterized by capitalism, the use of modern technology. When I say capitalism, it's a form of economic activity where the investors may invest their finance, their money, their wealth to a certain country for them to gain profit. That is what we have right now in the economic system of the United States, the economic system of the Philippines. It's a capitalism in nature. So for those who have wealth and money, they could invest. No, they are looking for investors. Like our country are looking for investors to generate works, also to generate job. No, because if there were no investors who came to our country, of course we cannot generate that much of job, that much of work that we are needing right now, especially during the pandemic. And that is the reason why we are looking for investors to invest to our country. Okay, so that is the third. As of today, we are in globalization 3.0. But as of this moment, we have what we call the Industrial Revolution 4.0. That is the last, as of today, Industrial Revolution 4.0. So I would like you, this is the last question. No, this is I might be the last question. Can you give me your idea? What is Industrial Revolution 4.0 and how is this related to globalization? Again, I repeat, what is Industrial Revolution 4.0 and how it is related to globalization? Okay, so that is the last question. But before that, before we have that answer, let's have the nine characteristic of globalization. When we can say that there is a globalization, of course, there is free trade. That is another form of capitalism, no? Free trade. We can trade to other countries. Our products can be sold to other countries. Our services can be also offered to other countries, like the OFW. No, we are being known to be one of the most skillful worker in the world. We deploy our workers, Filipino workers, to other countries because we are highly demanded. No, our skills, our services. Globalization allows free trade between and among countries without the state's intervention. Therefore, there is a minimum or minimal intervention if there is, like the tax. No, of course, tax intervene the free trade because you cannot have your trading, your chains of products without the tax, no, collection. As trade grows, related economies also grow. It leads also to the cooperation among countries. So we have the GATT or GATT or the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. There is also need of limitation when it comes to trading, when it comes to exporting and importing the products, no? Like what we call the quota. Now, for example, the product that you are going to sell in other country to export, example in the Philippines, our product, number one product being exported to other countries is banana or saging. Of course, that will be limited. Kay. There are other countries also would like to trade to that certain countries. For example, we are exporting our banana to China. But China has also another trade partners of banana. So they could not only rely on the Philippines, they could also rely to other country who exports banana. So therefore, there is a quota. In our country, we need petroleum products. So therefore, there is a need for us to import. So we have the idea of import and export. Of course, import the product. We need to import gasoline or petroleum product because that is needed in our daily lives. So that is an agreement with other countries, the general agreement on tariffs and trade. When I say tariffs, these are tax that we are going to pay when we buy a product to other countries, when we buy services to other countries. We all know that trade is an exchange of the products, the money, and of course the product itself. The second character is the liberalization. From the word libera, it's a freedom. It refers to the freedom of individuals or industrialists. These are the one who owns the companies, the one who produce the different products, to initiate and establish businesses, trading, commerce in other country or across the world. So it is also related to trading, no, commerce, comercio. Liberalization and globalization fail without each other. So when there is a hindrance, when you cannot go into a certain country and buy to their product, there was no globalization at all. Of course, one a good example of that there was no globalization. Let's say globalization, you are being, your country is open to other countries. And one good example, as of today in the history also, that you cannot go to other country, that certain country, because there was no globalization, there was no freedom, there was no ethnoscape. People could not go to that country, and that is North Korea. We all know that North Korea is very strict. No, there was no globalization at all. There was no exposure of their people to other people of the countries. Other countries could not visit. If they could visit, there are high restriction for them to visit North Korea, no? Because they have different beliefs on that. Globalization is not accepted in North Korea. So next, the third one is connectivity. It enables exchange of ideas, knowledge, and technology, culture between people around the globe. It impacts the life of people and their standard of living. So I have mentioned this several times: connectivity, connection, interconnectedness of each other. Connection helps businesses grow since industrialization depends on connectivity. Another one, economic globalization. It involves globalization of production, which means getting raw materials. I mentioned this earlier. Example, our country is one of the source of the raw materials. Other country, what is the problem of the Philippines when it comes to economic globalization? We have less number of manufacturing industries. We could not manufacture our own, for example, car industry. No, the car is being assembled in the Philippines, but those raw materials are not coming here in the Philippines. Our country is the one of the sources of the the one being assembled by other multinational corporation, like for example Toyota. Now we have a plantation here in Toyota, but the raw materials are not coming here in the Philippines. But there are other countries also looking for our own raw materials for them to make their product. No? For example, if in Europe they would like to have a furniture, a sofa, a furniture, a dining set, of course, they need to have the raw material. For example, the lumber or the wood. No, the raw material for that is the different trees. No, we have a lot of trees here in the country, so that serves as raw materials. Globalization of markets, the unions of amalgamation of various markets in the world to form the global market. The competition and company technologies are also part of the globalization because of these different companies, big and huge companies, for example, petroleum companies, they always they offer the same product, but because of there was no monopoly of the product, there was a free market and a competition. No? It includes the containerization of the multinational corporation, the trade facilitation, foreign direct investment, reduce the trade barriers. Therefore, before there is a trade barriers, you cannot trade to other country, no. But today, you can easily trade to other country because there is what we call foreign direct investment. Another characteristics of globalization is cultural globalization, the exchange of values, ideas, and meanings globally with a focus on extending and intensifying present relation, like factors by internet and pop culture media and international travel. When you go to other places, you can learn from their culture, you can experience their traditions and culture. Therefore, it will also involve the cultural globalization. The term is cultural diffusion. Different technologies, ideas, language, and religions are scattered and distributed in different cultures. It allows the exchange of social behavior around national and international borders. Another characteristic is political globalization. So it's in political by nature. Talks about the growth and success of global political system. Its primary aspect is the decrease of the nation as a state and the increase of other factors in the political front. No? So of course we have different issues in politics that involves political globalization. No? Multi-level governance emphasizes the relationship between international and domestic level authority. We have different organization, international organization, regional organization like the United Nations, the International Court Justice. No, we are part of that. No, due to the concept of multiple nations and citizenships. Another characteristic is opportunity. In globalization, it helps the countries, both developing and developed country, to grow and prosper by providing almost equal opportunities. Developed and developing countries could help each other hand in hand. Like example, we need to have partnership. We need to have partner countries in order to develop our economy. We need to invest to them, and we need also our investors to invest to our country. And that is opportunity. Another characteristic is learning. Globalization gives us the opportunities to learn from other countries and ensures learning for both developed and developing countries. We can benchmark their success, how they become a first world country from being a second or third world country. Like the Philippines, we need to learn from the strategies of different countries, especially the Europeans, the Americans, the Singaporeans, how they have improved their way of living, their status of living, like Japan, Singapore, and these other first world countries. We can also learn from them. And that is another opportunity for us to learn through the globalization. Let's have production advantage. So companies can establish business such as their manufacturing plant to countries where labor force and other factors of production such as land are relatively cheap because of free trade that will result to lower cost of production, and in return the companies gain competitive advantage. So this is economic in nature. It also increases employment which could result to the increase of standard of living. Companies eventually gain economies of scale and leads to higher global demand due to the low cost of production. When there is a low cost of production, no, meaning ang puhunan nila ay napakababa, of course, the income, the profit is high. So that's what they call the production advantage. They're looking for a low payment for their workforce or the labor force. That is why Filipino are being highly demanded in the international scenario because we have a quality job, quality service that we can offer to other countries, and we are in that cheap when it comes to our payment. No? Therefore, they can gain competitive advantage. There is relatively low um, cost of production. So I think that's all for the discussion about globalization. I hope that you have learned something on the topic globalization of pop culture. Now, it has different aspects when it comes to the effect of globalization to our country, to other countries, and why there is a need to us to connect to other countries. And of course, we need to be part of other countries. We need partnership, interconnectedness, and interrelatedness. So I think that's all for this discussion, the globalization of pop culture. So thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you have learned something for this day's discussion and input. Thank you so much for listening. Keep safe and God bless everyone.